Get back to the Rob Dibble Show.
Back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell. Joining us on the Rob Dibble Show hotline, Mike Crispino. He is your voice for UConn football, basketball, men's basketball, and baseball. Mike Crispino, how are you, sir?
Hello, Mike.
Dibs, Ben, how are you guys?
We're hanging in there, trying to stay dry.
Well, I have the Monday morning football blues, and Dibs is all dancing around in his cowboy gear. He's saying how great they are. They're going to the
How
Super
about them
Bowl.
Cowboys?
Everything he does, pro-Cowboys here and there. So it's kind of mixed emotions here in the studio after a weekend of football.
Yeah.
But how about you, man? Not the greatest time in Atlanta for our UConn friends.
No, that was discouraging. It was disappointing. I expected more from the team. Obviously, they have a lot of returning players. I mean, they have experienced guys who had success last year. So that's the part that puzzles me right now. And they're going to have to do something, I think, at the quarterback position right now because Joe Pignano has a shoulder injury. I don't know the extent yet. We're going to talk to Jim Moore tomorrow and get more on it.
Well, which shoulder?
It's his right shoulder, I
Ooh,
believe.
the bad one.
Wow.
I'm
That's
not
a bad
100%
one,
on that, though, because he ran the ball a bunch of times the other night, and he got hurt in one of the runs. So it was his right shoulder that Bob Howard, their medical guy, their trainer was looking at, and Joe came over to the sideline and was just indicating that he had some pain or discomfort. And so they took him out of there. Taquan Roberson did a nice job in relief, but the game was out of hand. They were down 4 scores. So, and afterwards, Jim Moore, said, listen, that's empty yardage. I like what Taquan did, but it's empty yardage because they were playing, prevent defense, basically giving big cushions to wide receivers and giving up yardage. UConn took advantage of it, and they needed to because your ego gets beaten up when you give up, 3 or 4 touchdowns. You're not scoring. You're trying for your first win. You don't get it. But they have a chance, I think, in this homestand. They got 3 games in a row coming up here, beginning with FIU on Saturday, then Duke, who's a top 25 team, and then Utah State to get themselves right back on track. I mean, nothing better than home cooking. So I think that's what I'm hearing today. I talked to a couple of the players. They're very much still confident about what they can do. But you got to do it. You got to see the results on the field, and they did not get any results on Saturday night. A Georgia State team, which is a good team. I mean, they're a Sun Belt team. They've been to 5 bowl games in the last, I believe it's 8 years.
Yeah.
They've got good quality football down there, and they got an excellent coach. And so, they made UConn look bad. Now they got to turn it around here in their next game against FIU. Very important.
Well, tell me about that. I mean, how do you have a letdown after you lose to NC State? You should be rebounding and being, ticked off and all that. 8 penalties they had in the game. I mean, what stands out to you, whether it's offense or defense, that it just didn't look sharp?
Well, football's a game of momentum, like any sport, really, but football maybe more than others. UConn shot themselves in the foot a couple times with penalties after they had offensive first down plays. That sets you back. You before you get some momentum, you got to go backwards, and that hurt. And then turnovers, a couple of fumbles. Last year, UConn was excellent in the turnover department, and they didn't get penalized very much either for most of the season. Last couple games, they had more penalties, but through the first 10 games of the season, they were one of the least penalized teams in the country. So I think it's 14 penalties now in these 2 games. Their opposition's only been penalized 3 times. So the opposition, NC State and then Georgia State, played clean football games. They turned UConn over. It's difficult to overcome that kind of thing. And when your offense isn't 100% operating the way you need it to be, they're not running the football, certainly Saturday night in Atlanta, as they're capable of doing. Because when you run the football, you control the game, and it opens up your passing attack. I think they ran 31 times for 50 yards. That's not good. A team that averaged 190-plus last year. So, and they have a veteran offensive line back. They only have one position. They had to replace Jake Guidon, their center. And their offensive running attack has not been what it has been in the past. And they got to get that straightened out.
One bugaboo that I can't put my finger on, maybe just because, like, once this ball starts rolling, it's hard to get stopped because you're thinking about it all the time. We need somebody to consistently catch the punt. We fumbled another one. I think it was it Buckman that ended up dropping this last one.
Yes.
We've had a couple of guys there. I mean, that is just such a killer when you get a stop on defense and then you give the ball right back to the other team.
No doubt. And Buckman dropped 2, actually. They got lucky on the second one. It got kicked out of bounds,
right,
and they didn't turn it over. But that and another fumble after a reception, Jalen Mitchell, you can't afford it. And UConn, margin for error for them isn't great. They're not putting up a lot of points right now. I think they're capable of scoring, but they've only scored 2 touchdowns in each of the first games. I mean, let's face it. How many teams are you going to beat by scoring 14? You know this, Ben, and Dibs. In the college game, to me, you got to get to 30. You get to 30, you got a chance to pretty much beat anybody any weekend. They haven't done that yet, so they got to somehow get that going in the right direction against Florida International.
How is Jim Moore Jr. doing with the 0-2 start?
I don't think he's happy. I don't think he is happy at all. But you remember he said before the first week's game, Rob, you just don't know when the season starts how your team's going to come out of the gates. Because in college, you don't have preseason games. You have no exhibitions. So I thought they played reasonably well against NC State. A couple of little, failures with penalties have put the other team in good field position. This game was different. They have had trouble controlling, running, and agile, elusive quarterbacks. They've had 2 of them in a row they faced, and both of those quarterbacks have had big days. And they got another guy coming up this weekend who could be just as good in terms of getting the ball on the ground and getting big yardage. If that happens, UConn is going to have some trouble because quarterbacks who get into your secondary and get extra yardage, that's a real problem, and they got to figure that out because they're going to get a third quarterback who's multi-talented this week for FIU, and they're 2-1. They got 2 wins. Their confidence level's very high. It's not like they're coming in here and not knowing where they're at. Keon Jenkins is the guy's name who plays QB for FIU. He was 20 for 32 last week, almost 300 yards, and he ran for 36 more. So, and they got a running back by committee group that runs well. So UConn's defense is going to be challenged. They have got to really create either turnovers or some, 3-and-outs to get their offense in good field position.
Will the offense be different with Taquan Roberson being quarterback, or will it be the same offense that we saw with Joe Fagnano?
I don't know. That's a great question. I wish I did know. Taquan threw with authority. He threw on time for the most part. He was a little errant with a couple of his throws. He made 30 passes the other day against Georgia State. Maybe the best thing that came out of that game is that Fagnano couldn't play the second half, so Roberson had a whole half to deal the ball out there. And he ran with it a little bit, and he looked good. Remember, he hadn't played all year last year. He played basically one quarter of football and then was out with a knee injury for the season. So I think if anything came out of that game at Georgia State, it was that Taquan Roberson got legitimate time on the field, reps, working with his receivers. He found Buckman a few times. He found Cam Ross, Justin Jolie. I mean, he's got a little, repetition going now with some of his skill players. So I think that can help this weekend. I really do. And I'm hoping for that because if UConn can put a little pressure on FIU, control the ball, run the ball better, get themselves in position to grab the lead in the game at home, I think they got a good shot to win.
All right, let's talk some basketball. We're talking to Mike Crispino, used to call NBA basketball for the New York Knicks, if you didn't know. Germany, Serbia, Canada, all medaled. You know who didn't? USA. Mm-hmm. Story comes out today that LeBron James, AD, Curry, all these other guys, they all want to play.
Anthony Davis,
they all want to play in the Olympics. KD. Your thoughts, at the same time, the NBA puts that whole thing out about load management. So are these guys actually waking up to the fact that, hey, maybe we need to do more?
I hope you're right. USA failed to medal for a second straight time in this World Cup. They did not have Jaren Jackson, Brandon Ingram, or Pablo Banchero out with illness in this last game.
Good point.
But, they lost 3 of their last 4. They allowed 117 in the 3 losses. They did not defend against Germany in that semifinal. And Canada had a roster full of quickness and versatility. And I understand what Steve Kerr was doing. He did not play any big men. He went 5 guards. He played Josh Hart in the middle, who's only 6'5", the Knick backcourt guy. So, I understand what, LeBron is trying to do, and I appreciate it because, America takes pride in basketball. We're the best basketball country on the planet. But there's great players in those other countries now, and Steve Kerr recognized that he actually said that after the loss to Germany. So, I mean, we're on equal terms in some ways in terms of talent and coaching. But you throw LeBron James out there and Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis, and then all of a sudden we got the best players easily on the court. That changes a few things. So I appreciate what they're saying. I don't know. Steve Kerr was trying to play Golden State Warrior basketball, and everyone does that on the international level. Nobody's more than 6'7" for crying out loud. So the other teams were better at it. Let's face it. I mean, Canada, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he had 31 points, 7 in overtime, 12 assists, averaged almost 25 in the series of games. Great player out of Oklahoma City, obviously high draft pick out of Kentucky, went to Charlotte first as number 11. But then they had Dylan Brooks, too.
Played great. He played great.
39 points. The guy was a second-round draft pick in the NBA, 45th overall. Out of Oregon, he was fabulous. So, Canada had good players. I don't know what's going to happen next. But if LeBron wants to do this, he's got to do it soon because he's closing in on 40 years old himself. Let's face it.
On top of UConn play-by-play, on top of New York Knicks play-by-play, Mike Crispino also used to be found running around the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center during U.S. Open month. Now, I know what you already think of Djokovic, 24 singles titles. The guy's awesome. We've seen it. We've done that. I don't care about what you think on Djokovic. I want to know what you think of Coco Gauff. 5th teen ever to win. First teen since Serena. She's 19. I just fell in love with this girl over the weekend, and really the last couple of weeks. I really feel like she finally just got the attitude, got the determination to say, nah, this is my time. I don't care what the situation is. I'm going to win it. I loved it. What did you think, Crispino, of the women's side for the U.S. Open?
Well, Coco Gauff, she was in the spotlight since age 15. there've been a lot of young, great American women's players over the years. Tracy Austin, Mary Jo Fernandez, of course, Chris Evert.
Yep.
There hasn't, and of course, Serena. We can't forget her.
Right.
But Coco is maybe a little different because she is in the spotlight. Unlike, say, Naomi Osaka, who was in the spotlight, won majors. Everyone loved her, too. But she didn't handle it that well, and I don't know what the background is with her. She had what she was saying was mental issues dealing with the fame and the spotlight. But Coco seems to have a great attitude and an ability to handle the mantle of being the great American women's player. So I'm excited for her. I did not think she could win the championship. I thought Aryna Sabalenka was the better player, but Coco proved me wrong because she ran everything down. And when you have the American crowd behind you, you have that extra energy. So let's just see, because the one thing about the women's side that I've learned over the 20 years plus I was, at the U.S. Open is great players come and go. Injury kind of breaks down on the women's side more than the men's side, and I don't have any explanation for it. It's a grind. They have to play, 40 weeks a year, and a lot of the ladies don't stand up to that. It's a tough battle to play all those weeks and all those matches. And what happens is they break down physically, and they can't maintain that high level. Coco Gauff may be a little different. I'm kind of hoping because she is a fun player to watch, and she is a class act. And people got behind her, and they loved what she was doing. She's a fighter, and you know how American crowds, rally behind those kind of players. So I was excited to see what she did, and I just hope she can handle it. And the main thing she said, Ben, and I love this, Dibs, too, she said, listen, I'm third in the world right now. I'm number 1 in doubles. Remember that. She's a darn good doubles player. She said, I want to just win majors. I want to win Grand Slams. I'm not going to say how many I'm going to win, but I want to win those.
Yeah, she said as many as I can. She didn't say
Right.
how many. She said, I just want to win as many as I can. She's classy.
Right, and so she's got goals. She's not just sitting there going, "Oh, I won the U.S. Open. Wow, that's tremendous. I didn't think I could do it." No, she's all about it. Let me do it again. Let me do it at Wimbledon. She failed there this summer, but let me do it at the French Open. She's setting a standard for herself that I love, because if you do that, you go back to people like Steffi Graf, who won 22 majors before she retired in '99. Of course, Billie Jean King, we know all about her. They had a real desire and a want to that you got to have if you're going to succeed on the highest level in these major sports and in these major events. And it seems to me like Coco Gauff has that.
Yes, she does. And she did pay homage to Billie Jean King when she got handed a $3 million check. She said, "Thank you so much for fighting for equal pay." So that was pretty classy of her as well. Awesome. Mike Crispino, always a pleasure to get you on, my friend. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
You got it, guys. Anytime.
All right, we got breaking news in the NFL. Ben will break some of this stuff down for you. We'll be right back with Sports Menu here on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell, Kurt Kaplan, John Ashmead.